Well, thank you for that introduction, Dave, and thank you to Flycast Partners for hosting us all here today. So if you're interested in learning a little bit about security and compliance in the public cloud as it pertains to your organization, maybe you're an enterprise or maybe you're a small business and you're looking to get out there in the public cloud, I'm sure security is one of the concerns that are at top of mind, especially the recent headlines. So hopefully after today's presentation, you'll come away with some actionable insights that you can take forward and back to your organization. So I thought I'd begin just by showing literally a handful of slides, and then from there we'll go into a solution demonstration which customers are using. It's from BMC, that's TrueSight Cloud Security, and we'll just see how it goes, and then we'll throw it open for questions. All right. So as we talk about the current situation, the enterprise adoption of public cloud, it's growing like gangbusters. The public cloud market is growing well north of 25% year on year. I just saw a statistic the other day published that it eclipsed $250 billion. So organizations of all sizes across all verticals are rushing out to the cloud to take advantage of all the flexibility and the scalability that it offers their business. But with that flexibility and scalability comes some downside risks as well. Not the least of which, if you spend 5 minutes in a Google browser, you'll see a lot of high-profile data breaches, exposures, and leakages out there. In fact, in 2017, there were over 2 billion records exposed in the public cloud, and that was up 424% year on year. And the bad guys have the public cloud squarely in their crosshairs, and for good reason, because quite frankly, the pickings are easy. The overwhelming majority of these exposures are due to the simple misconfiguration of cloud resources, and we'll have more to talk about that during the presentation. A second factor that we see shaping the current situation of security is the scarcity of qualified cybersecurity talent. Half of our customers surveyed cite that the shortage of this security personnel is problematic to the execution of their mission. And then thirdly, finally, the explosion of DevOps, microservices, and containers has really presented another challenge vector for securing the enterprise footprint in the public cloud. And containers, if you think the talent pool for security is scarce, and then cloud security is scarcer still, and container security is yet another niche that the organization is trying to fill, a need they're trying to fill so that their containers are secured. Docker is growing like wildfire. It's 40% year on year, and it is the market leader. Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform, and it's nearly doubling year on year. So the net of this slide is the cloud is growing. Businesses of all sizes can't get enough, but the bad guys have their crosshairs squarely aimed at the public cloud, and there's a lot of data leakage going on out there, and we can't even solve this problem by throwing bodies at it. The speed of change is too fast. So I mentioned that Google browser. So Gartner have an interesting quote. They say that through 2023, 99% of cloud security failures will be the customer's fault. Yeah, and they're not trying to be antagonistic here. What they're trying to convey is that there is a shared responsibility model, and that services that the cloud service providers offer if they are to be secured, they must be appropriately configured. And it's the misconfiguration of these resources that continues to trip up the business. And that's because it's not a one-time set it and forget it type of thing. The business is constantly innovating. You've got developers across the enterprise that you could easily have hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts. And it's not even just the scope and scale of the problem, it's the speed at which these developers are innovating. And every time they're innovating and pushing new updates out in production, you risk a misconfiguration of a resource. And spend 5 minutes in a Google browser and you'll see example after example showing this to be true. Exactus, for example, is a U.S. marketing firm based out of Florida in or about June of this year. They had an unsecured Elasticsearch service on AWS, which led to the exposure of 340 million records of U.S. consumers. So somewhere out there in the world, there are bad guys that now know more about U.S. consumers than do many of their Facebook friends. So the threat is real, and if you could imagine if this happened within the context of the GDPR, you could begin to appreciate the financial risk to your organization. So these risks drive certain requirements, right? So first and foremost, there's a need to consistently and securely configure the resources that your organization is consuming in the public cloud. And that needs to be abstracted away from the complexity of the number of cloud accounts you have, the number of cloud platforms you're using, whether or not they're AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. We need a means, a standard-based way of testing the configurations of our resources and remediating them. And we need to do this in an automated fashion so that we're able to quickly close the window of vulnerability before bad guys extract our critical IP or customer data out there. So secondly, we also need to deliver full stack container security. Now, containers break the typical governance model. These short-lived resources typically spin up and spin down and have life cycles that reside in the white spaces between your typical security suites out in the public cloud. So in order to make sure that we're secure, we need to have security in depth from the beginning, up front. And that means security at multiple levels, from the Kubernetes cluster all the way down to the runtime Docker container and everywhere in between, including the daemon, the image, and the host OS compliance. So with these two requirements in mind, full stack container security and consistent secure configuration of resources, BMC developed TrueSight Cloud Security. Now, BMC, we started our own cloud transformation journey around 5 years ago. We recognized that the use of the public cloud was taking traction, and that we expected that our customer base would have a need for such a solution out there. And so we have a long, proud history over decades of securing, automating, and optimizing IT environments for the enterprise and meeting customers where they live. If that's the mainframe, we have solutions. If that's the data center, we've been there too. And now we're there for our customers in the public cloud. So TrueSight Cloud Security is a SaaS security and compliance solution which automates testing and remediation of cloud resource configurations. So we support the big three, that's AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and because it's SaaS, there's nothing to install. You can literally be up and running in 5 minutes of logging in. Secondly, we deliver on that full stack container security promise that we talked about previously, and that leverages our experience in the data center and private cloud delivering host OS compliance. Our architecture is extensible by design. So all of the policies that come ready to use right out of the box, we deliver those to our customers as code right there within the solution so that customers can copy, paste, and within the authoring sandbox, develop their own custom policies that might be unique to their specific organizational requirements. We deliver not only security in depth, but also automation at multiple levels. Shown here is the user interface. The point you can deliver automated remediation via the point, click, and fix user interface. You can, anything you do via the user interface can be done programmatically via our REST API. And now we also offer self-driving remediation, which, like a self-driving car, gives you the option to turn the controls over to the machine for policies which you specify, such that if there's ever a violation of the policies which you determine to enable self-driving remediation, once we identify it, we'll close that vulnerability by reconfiguring those resources, and we'll send you an alert notification. So you can imagine a situation, it might be 2 o'clock in the morning, you're home in bed. Rather than the bat phone ringing, you really just want the machine to take the wheel and close down that insecure S3 bucket, for example. And then finally, we offer integration into enterprise-level ITSM solutions. What this does, it delivers incident and change management integration. So right here from the solution, TrueSight Cloud Security can pass information about and open an incident ticket, which can then kick off your change approval process. And we could submit a change request as well through that incident. Okay, so with that, that's probably enough PowerPoint for the moment. Let me come over here, and I'll actually show you a real simple demo of TrueSight Cloud Security. Now, those who joined early, you may have noticed me log into the solution. So it's at cloudsecurity.truesight.bmc.com. So this is the dashboard or home base for TrueSight Cloud Security. It shows me at a glance my security posture for my specific environment. My environment here is a demo environment. I have connectors here to various AWS accounts for your environment. You can imagine production, stage, dev, QA, whatnot. There's also Azure connectors. You see here Docker and Kubernetes, as well as a Google Cloud environment. So just reading the dashboard real quickly, we have about 2.4 thousand total resources. Now, what's a resource, some of you might ask? Anything that it's an instance of a cloud service offered by AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. It could be a storage, like an S3 bucket. It could be a serverless compute, like AWS Lambda or Google Functions, so on and so forth. So we have about 2.4K, and it looks like about 1K of them are non-compliant, or 44%. So let's do this. I want to narrow the focus because I'm not going to deal well with such a large number. So let's go in here and here. So what I'm doing is I'm filtering. I'm showing you how easy it is to filter and narrow the focus. Okay, so now I'm just looking, I'm pointing the service at 2 accounts on AWS. And let's say I'm specifically interested, and you could also narrow the focus by tags, by account names, policies that might be of interest, or severity level even. But for purposes of this demonstration, let's look at Elasticsearch. Let's pick on that because I mentioned earlier in the presentation that Exactus had an unsecure Elasticsearch domain. And in fact, I saw in TechCrunch this morning there was another Elasticsearch domain that was unsecured that resulted in a breach. Okay, so it looks like we have a total of 7 Elasticsearch services that are live on these 2 AWS environments. 2 of these are non-compliant and 5 are compliant. So again, we see the 2 non-compliant resources, and then I go to the left and I see 2 violations here, and critical violations. So I'll click in. And this will show you the violations, and we are violating the rule that says the domain must not have open access. So because we're violating that, that would suggest to me that this Elasticsearch service is wide open to the public internet. And we see that we have 2 resources here that are non-compliant. So let's click in on this rule. And it shows us the 2 resources that are non-compliant. Now, I ran a demonstration earlier today, and so that's where that remediation completed comment is coming from. You would not see such thing in your environment. This is a demonstration environment. Okay, so that said, we have 2 resources, and they're named JT data and customer data. Okay. So now I'm concerned. JT data just sounds like a engineering sandbox, but customer data sounds like something that we would be running in production. We have an Elasticsearch service that contains customer data that is failing this policy that right here, domain does not have open access. Seems pretty scary, right? So I click in. Here are the results. Now, your security administrator or director or architect might be interested in these details. Green is good, red is bad, and this is the reason why we're failing right here. It says principal or admin must not equal the world, and the value returned is the world. Okay, I want to fix this, and I want to fix this as quickly as possible, so I'm going to show you the magic of TrueSight Cloud Security. We just select it and we click the button, Remediate Violations. Now you'll get a green feel-good message that says, hey, you've submitted a remediation request. What does this mean? By clicking that button, what did I do? TrueSight Cloud Security is right now reaching out to the API for the cloud service provider. In this case, it was AWS. And we are reconfiguring that Elasticsearch service so that it complies with policy. We're shutting it down. It's still going to be operating, but we're turning on privacy so that the public internet, unworthy eyes will not have access. And then after a couple of moments, that will be updated. And then the next time you run a security sweep of that environment, you will see 1 less violation. Now keep in mind that this is programmatic automated remediation available at the push of a button. But I said that there were 2 other means of remediating that are probably beyond the scope of my capability to demonstrate to you today. But you can write scripts that would reach into our REST API if point, click, and fix is not automated enough for you. But I would even recommend just skipping right past that step because scripts are complicated, and for TrueSight Cloud Security, they're quite unnecessary. We've abstracted all that complexity away for you. Instead, if you want more automation than the push of a button, I would recommend customers begin to get comfortable and play with self-driving remediation. And what that would be is instead of the on-demand remediation that I showed you at the push of a button, it would be automatic. You would enable the machine the moment the solution identifies such a violation, it would actually take action to remediate, open up that ticket, and so on and so forth. So with that, that is the end of the demo. I will take it back over to here. And I'll just, before we open it up to questions, I'll just close it with an invitation. I'd like to invite you to take a free, absolutely no obligation trial of TrueSight Cloud Security. Reach out to Flycast partners, and they can get you access with BMC to the solution. You can then check your own cloud security posture and begin to close those gaps. Take it for a spin, check it out, see what it's capable of doing, and give us your feedback. We're welcome to that. So with that in mind, I'll throw it back to Dave. Thank you, Dave. And if we have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rick, for the presentation. And yeah, definitely to everyone out there, definitely reach out to us if you're interested in giving this trial a start and everything. So a couple questions, Rick, that we have here through the Q&A section, and I'll just kind of revert back in time. You began the demonstration by showing the security posture, which I think there's like 2,400 resources there.
Yeah.
So the question here is, can you clarify again what the security posture was testing against?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So good question. I mentioned that TrueSight Cloud Security has a deep library of policies. So what we're doing is we're testing all of the resources within those accounts against that library of security and compliance policies. So what we've done is we've read for understanding all the Center for Internet Security benchmarks, or CIS benchmarks, which publish best practice recommendations around how to configure the services available from the cloud service providers so that those services are secure. So that's what we're doing. We're testing or hardening or testing the configuration of the resources that you're consuming against that library of policies. So hopefully that helped.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Another question we have here, Rick, is how frequently can security checks be run?
I see. Yeah, we often get this question. So I believe you can get them down as granular as 5 minutes. So, but it really depends upon your environment, right? If you have a dev environment, you might only want to, and you have assurances from your developers or have some sort of governance mechanism that makes sure that there's no critical IP or customer data in an engineering sandbox, then maybe you only scan a development environment, I don't know, once a week or once a day. But a production environment, you'll definitely want to run those security sweeps more frequently. And yeah, we have granularity down to 5 minutes. And we're also working on a very, very exciting new feature called event-driven compliance, and that's coming very soon.
Okay, and another question we have here is just as asking, how does remediation action work?
Okay. First of all, I love the questions. Thank you for these. How does the remediation action work? Okay, so what I demonstrated was I pushed a button via the user interface. So what's happening is that cloud security goes out programmatically to the cloud service provider's API, and then reaches in through the API to deliver the appropriate commands so that non-compliant resource is reconfigured so that it becomes compliant with the policy it previously failed.
All right. Yeah, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A section here, Rick.
Okay.
But I do urge the audience, if you have follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to us at flycastpartners.com, or you can email me specifically at david.apple@flycastpartners.com. We'll be happy to answer those questions or get them to the right people to provide some more clarity. And Rick, I again appreciate your time and coming in and talking about cloud security with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Dave, and thank you to our audience for your attention and for your questions. Let me know if I can ever be of assistance in the future. Appreciate you.